Hello viewers, I'm Ron Grant coming to you live and direct from Tortola in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. A happy Monday to you all, and of course a happy Valentine's Day is wished to all our viewers. I want to thank you so much for your time today and taking the time, of course, to stay tuned to 284 Media for content. There was, as you know, a major disturbance over the weekend in close proximity to the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital as an unidentified male was caught on video damaging the windshields of some 20 vehicles parked in the area. It is unclear what sparked the incident, which according to reports was done by one individual. But the very unfortunate incident, viewers, has awoken a more serious problem in the Virgin Islands, mental health and the conversation. Now, shortly after that incident, two more videos circulated, one showing a male in a supermarket parking lot standing by the window of a female sitting in her car behaving inappropriately. This is, of course, not the first time this has happened. Another video showed a female outside of the emergency room of the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital behaving erratically. Now, many have said that more attention needs to be paid to mental health, signs, prevention, and the overall well-being of residents. Moreover, these videos show how the lives of other residents are essentially in danger as a result of the mental well-being of others. Today, I am joined by Shane Tull out of New York, who is the author of Mental Health Pandemic. Tull, a clinical psychotherapist, consultant, and life coach, is a Caribbean man who is committed, he says, to improving the psychosocial development of humanity as it relates to individuals and communities everywhere. Tull recently launched his book, The Mental Health Pandemic, which he says explores the premise that mental health has become the pandemic within the pandemic. Now, Shane Tull of New York is a clinical psychotherapist, consultant, and life coach who, through using a diverse clinical and multicultural professional expertise with vulnerable populations, is vested in improving members of these communities' psychosocial development. In a private practice for more than 10 years, and for 8 of those years, he served as a clinical psychotherapeutic consultant with GMAD, provided individual and group psychotherapy. As a clinician, he provides psychological support and documentation for clients in need of asylum services. As a mental health expert, his clinical expertise was demonstrated at the U.S. CDC's Mental Health Initiative, which provides positive outcomes in Guyana's PUSH program. And as an international consultant, he has presented discussions including on motivational interviewing, disclosure, health protective behaviors, depression, and suicide prevention. We're going to break down the issue of mental health across the region and by extension our world after we get back after this quick commercial break. You're watching 284 Media.
Live stream cable TV is here with CCT Live. Access over 80 channels that you can watch either at home or when you're on the go. And don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Rewind and watch in your own time. Come to CCT today and ask about our 1-month free trial offer. CCT Live. Bring it home.
Viewers, welcome back and thank you so much for your time. As mentioned, I am joined by author Shane Tull. Mr. Tull, I want to thank you so much for your time and taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to discuss not only the book, by extension, mental health prevention as it pertains to our territory. As I mentioned to you in the introduction, we had quite an experience over the weekend, an example of how exactly the lives of others can be in danger because of the mental well-being of others. Welcome to the show and thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Ron. Thank you for having me.
So I want to ask you, let's get into the conversation. We're in 2022 and still the conversation of mental health seems to be taboo. Not only in the Virgin Islands, not only in the region, but across the world. We have seen some very daunting examples of lives being lost due to mental health. Just recently, actress Regina King lost her only son, which we're going to get into, and of course, Miss USA, former Miss USA 2019, jumping out of a New York building and taking her own life at the age of 30. What should we be paying more attention to? What are we missing, Mr. Tull?
I think we have to start with the language we use around mental health, and we think that mental health is this abstract thing that we just talk about. But really, mental health is what you and I are doing having a conversation, engaging, looking for ways that we can connect with the people that in our lives that may be experiencing a mental health crisis. And as you alluded to, the two persons that died by suicide, I think it's important for us to use the appropriate language. When we say someone killed himself or committed suicide, it's like we're blaming the victims. So we want to
Mhm.
be very clear with the language we use that they died by suicide. And I just want us to think what it takes for someone to even consider that and the amount
Please
of
do.
pain that they're in. Yeah.
So when we consider the inner thoughts of someone, let's take for example the former Miss USA. Her most recent post said, "May this day bring you rest and peace." When we look at the language of persons and some of the subliminal messages that they might be sending, how can we be picking up on these signs?
You- It's very baffling, and we have to be very clear that suicide is a baffling phenomenon. I do think that when someone is in the throes of a mental health crisis, their goal is to not to let everyone around them see how they're suffering. Their presentation is very clear. They want to convince everyone around them how well they are. We're very concerned about when someone is depressed and they're labile and they're in bed and they're crying and they're not getting out. That's when we're concerned about if they may hurt themselves. But the reality is, when someone is that depressed, they don't have the energy to execute what they're thinking about if they're contemplating suicide. And that's the baffling thing about suicide. If you look back in history, when someone dies by suicide, the whole community left gasping for air because it is so shocking, it's overwhelming. And you have conversations with your peers, and they're very clear that I spoke to this person yesterday. They were fine. They were doing well. We didn't see this coming, because when someone is committed to executing this act, they will find a way to do it. And it's just for us to pay keen attention to the people in our lives. And like you said, some of the messages are subliminal, but sometimes they're very clear messages. But there is no roadmap to this. It's just about us paying attention, engaging the people in our lives, and following our gut feeling. If you know someone very well and you see it in the past 3 weeks to a month, their behavior has changed drastically, you may want to engage them in a conversation and use facts. In the last 3 weeks, I've seen this drastic change in you. What's going on? How can I support you through this experience?
Thank you for those points. I want to talk about suicide prevention. You just encourage friends and family to not only pay attention to signs, but be willing to have the conversation. Holistically, how exactly, what are the actual points that we should be looking at when we think of suicide prevention? Is it counseling? Is it intervention by family? What should we be considering? What options do we have for our loved ones?
I think all the above. If you care about someone and you feel that they're in a crisis, it is imperative that you actually engage them in this conversation and use facts. Like in the last 3 months or the last 3 weeks, these are the things I've noticed about you, and it's somewhat out of character. So, how can I support you through this process? Or you may need to engage other members in the community that are close to that person that are probably noticing the same thing, and you put up a united front with care, because I think compassion is imperative, but you can compassion and accountability can coexist in the same space, where you're very clear, we care about you, but we need you to be accountable in terms of taking care of your mental health, and we want to be a support for you as you move forward.
uh, Suicide and mental health, depression shows no barrier as it pertains to age. However, within the past few months, we have seen an increase in younger persons really suffering in silence. I want to talk about millennials and mental health. Where are we as it pertains to bringing home the message, particularly to millennials, my demographic, that
Mhm.
this is not something that they should be ashamed of. How are we bringing home the message that they should be seeking help? How can we help millennials particularly?
I think one of the things we need to do is really demystify the myth around mental health. And these things happen with education and conversations and stakeholders. I think that a society itself needs to be very clear that mental health is health, and we need to have these safe spaces where people can come and ventilate their feelings. And it needs to be a collaboration from government, business, and other stakeholders, that we create a space that it's and send a message out that it's okay not to be okay, but it's also okay to get the help you need. And that has to be a collaborative effort. It takes a community to support us. If you think of when someone dies, the community support. When someone gets married, the community support. So in mental health, it is a community support that we will have to take. But we first have to get over the notion that mental health is this obscure thing. And as Caribbean people, we have a shame around mental health.
Yes.
If we have a family member that is struggling, and that is what needs to be spoken to, the shame around the person that is experiencing the mental health crisis. And how do we educate families and loved ones to support this person, giving them the right tools and the right education, and also the correct support?
Wonderful, because as you said, it still takes a community, but most importantly, it still takes a village. And I'm glad you mentioned the Caribbean communities, because we come from a bit of a smaller demographic where we're close-knit. The populations are not as large as particularly in a city like you in New York. But I still think with that in mind, we should be paying more attention to the signs, the language, the behavior of persons, because we are so much more close-knit. We're not spread across, and we're not as divided as bigger cities are. So that allows us, I think, holistically to have a better understanding and hopefully a better eye for what are these signs. Shane, I want to go to a clip. Of course, we discussed and we talked about actress Regina King really losing her only son in the ultimate tragedy. But I wanted to toss to a clip of Regina and her son really interacting on more than one occasion. And here, one of the most beautiful things you see about this, but like you mentioned, persons who are struggling with suicidal thoughts or depression are so keen on masking and presenting a united front as though they're okay. And in these clips, to be honest with you, I don't think the average person would have understood or thought that Regina's son would have taken his own life. So let's take a look at this.
Raising my son Ian. The fact that I get to share this night with you, the best date in the house. Oh man, you make being a mother my greatest accomplishment. I mean, look at this young man that is my most. This makes me happier than anything in the whole world. And to know that I was going to have to be in a space of a mother losing her child for 6 months, it was terrifying. I didn't realize that was the reason why. In my mind, I told myself, I don't need to play another mother. I need to chill on a mother role for a while. But as I was in it, and Veena Sood was so sure that I needed to be the mother, and as I was in it and we were working on the show, I realized it was just my own fear of being in a place that I don't ever want to be in life, you know?
I've had a chance to spend some time with your mother, mostly on shows doing interviews, but she's got this amazing energy about her. What was she like for you as mom growing up?
Man, as mom, usually people will ask me, like, what's it like having Regina King be your
She seems
mother?
like she's always in a good mood.
Yeah, she's just a super mom, really. Like, she doesn't really let, bad work days or anything come back and ruin the time that we have. So it's really awesome to have a mother that can also love to enjoy. Oh my gosh. I can enjoy spending time with
Yes.
and all that. So,
Well, she's done a fine job, you can tell. Good job, you guys. It's great to see you. I like this close.
Viewers, that was the one and only Regina King alongside her son Eon. In both clips, the first one you saw, she accepted an Emmy win, which she was so proud to have him as the best date in the house, she said. And in the second clip, which was an interview with Ryan Seacrest, he talks about her being a supermom, and she also identifies being a mom, and eerie enough, speaking about the idea that she had to channel a mom losing her son, which is something that for the particular role that she was taking up at that point, it was something that she could not describe. Now we see where she has had to come to grips with losing her son by suicide. Shane, tell us about this immense loss by Regina King. And truly, it's really shocked the world, it shocked Hollywood, but really, again, bringing home the idea that this is affecting all of us.
It's baffling. It's heartbreaking. I, as a parent, I can't imagine what she's experiencing. But when you think of how many people are out there that are experiencing this, and the loss and the guilt that anyone would be experiencing in this situation, it's unbelievable. So even when someone dies by suicide, we still have work to do because we have to repair the family, the loved ones, the community, and it's really about not placing blame and shame. It's really about supporting them through, because it's one of the most baffling things about suicide. When someone decides to commit the act, they're committed to it and they will do it. And that's also, um, it leaves us helpless. It leaves us extremely vulnerable. But the goal is really to place a lot of emphasis on prevention. What can we do? How can we support someone in our life that we may suspect that are experiencing a mental health crisis? And it really takes a village. It really takes us coming together and really having very serious conversations about mental health, especially in the Caribbean community, especially in the African American community, because there are studies that are showing that younger people, as you
Yes.
say, the millennials, are dying by suicide at a higher rate, and it's alarming. But I really think it gives us pause to really address this issue. And one of the reasons I wrote the book, I
Yes.
think that mental health has become the pandemic within the pandemic, and we must give voice to it. We also must give the support that is needed from a collective point of view.
And speaking of the book, Mental Health Pandemic, tell us about the book and why you chose to pen your years of experience in really sharing the science and prevention with the world. And I could not agree with you more, really bringing home the fact that mental health has become a pandemic within a pandemic. Tell us about the book.
I was in New York when the global pandemic started, and you just to see the way the city shut down, became completely
Yeah.
empty, and seeing how people were being affected, the way I was being affected, because we just had to stay home, and so that affected everyone's mental health. But also talking to other people, my colleagues, my friends, going to Guyana, traveling to different countries, the underlying theme that I noticed, that people were depressed and they were scared. And I wanted to offer a body of work where anyone can pick up this book and read it and get a sense of what mental health is and how they can improve their own mental health, but also support someone that may be going through a mental health crisis.
What do you want persons to take away most as they read the pages of this book, whether it be family, friends, or someone who's actually going through depression? What do you want the takeaway to be?
I want them to take away the tagline that's on the book: be gentle to yourself. I really think we live in a society where we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, or we expect a lot. But I want people to believe that it's okay to have a rough day. It's okay not to be okay, but it's also okay to get the help you need to get through this. We are approaching the third year of a global pandemic with really no clear exit.
Yes.
So on a daily basis, we are all struggling, and we need to recognize that not only in ourselves, but the people in our lives. And how do we? I believe this is an inflection point for humanity. Really, how we come through this experience should tell a lot about what humanity is about, and tell us a lot about our own humanity. So pay attention to the people in our lives. Like, go out and meet the elderly person and sit on their stairs, talk to them, talk with the youth, go to the beach, walk on the sand. There are little things that we can do to gain agency over how we feel and control of our lives. And there are things like just walking on the beach. That is helpful. If you live in literally paradise, you can look at your back door and see the mountains and the sky. And maybe because you live there, you take it for granted. But I'm always in awe every time I come to the BVI. So I want to point out that there are things that we can do to take care of ourselves and support the people in our lives as well.
Shane, I want to thank you so much, not only for your time, but congratulations on the book, Mental Health Pandemic. I think it is so important more than ever that persons have a reference to go to, especially Caribbean persons. Of course, you are of Guyana heritage, a Caribbean descent, now living and working in New York, but that does not mean that you are detached. You're very still connected to Caribbean culture, and I do hope that this book helps all of us, but particularly Caribbean natives. How can persons who want to grab a copy of the book, how can they get one?
It's on Amazon. It's done pretty well in the ratings on Amazon. So I definitely encourage people to go out and get it. It's an easy read. It really is. And anyone can, at the end of it, feel a sense of empowerment and a sense of understanding what mental health is, what depression looks like. But also the message I do want to communicate is to be gentle to ourselves and be gentle to the people in our lives, especially as we continue to navigate through this pandemic.
I agree with you more. We have been trying our best for, as you said, going into 3 years now, and it sometimes it gets a little easier and then it picks back up again. But we want to thank you so much for your time, viewers. I trust that this interview was helpful as we, of course, looked at the events over the past weekend and by extension, look at what has been taking place across the region and across the world on the international stage. Suicide by debt becoming more and more prevalent among millennials. We spoke about Eon, the son of Regina King, and of course the Miss USA 2019, Chelsea Chris, just age 30. I think we continuously need to pay more attention to it, and remember that it still takes a village to connect and to keep us all intertwined and be safe. Know the signs, have the conversations, and please do not hesitate to reach out and get some help. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, be sure to tune in consistently for content both locally, regional, and internationally. We have a myriad of articles and videos and interviews for you. You can visit our website at 284media.com as well as our social media handles, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It is always a pleasure. I do hope you had a beautiful Valentine's Day. We will see you tomorrow. I'm Ron Grant for 284 Media. Bye-bye.